Hi, Pat Tucker, Science Technology Editor for Defense One, here with Brigadier General King. Northern Germany, cold here, General. How long?
All weather.
Yeah.
All weather.
This is a drone hunter F700 from Fordham, a drone equipped with advanced radar and either explosives or nets to take out other small drones. For the US, this is what the future of war looks like. Flying robots that hunt other flying robots, radio towers that can pick up small aerial disturbances that big radars would miss, compact sensors that can make it easier for soldiers to hit targets that are designed not to be targetable. In November, members of the U.S. Army's 10th Air and Missile Defense Command,
Our first class Mincy with 5-4 Thai platoon. We only been shooting for 5 days.
a handful of U.S. defense startups, and European military officials met in Germany to look at the newest U.S. technology to thwart drone attacks. This is just one of a string of big efforts to get new drones and new counter-drone tech out to soldiers as quickly as possible, and also grow a new startup industry around drone warfare. Russia's war in Ukraine has exposed big, expensive gaps in how the U.S. builds and defends against the most important weapon of the future.
I'd say if you asked me 3 to 4 years ago, if we would have seen any one country's ability to launch 500 to 600 OWADs, one-way attack drones, in a 24-hour period, I don't know that I would have told you yes.
What we've learned from the Ukraine-Russia war is that the front lines of a conflict over territory are robot on robot now.
Now, since the beginning of the year, the Pentagon has actually issued a series of changes to get at this problem. And while the Pentagon's new leadership is pretty polarizing on a lot of issues, beyond the headlines, there's wide agreement across the military, between the department and Congress, and between the U.S. and Europe, that these changes are long overdue.
Yeah, I do think that this leadership team in the Pentagon, to their credit, is very invested in shaking things up and moving faster and clearing on some of the red tape. Mm-hmm. I think that there's a big piece of this that's got to happen on Capitol Hill as well. Mm-hmm. And Congress has got to be supportive. Some of that has to do with just like things like getting less control out of the appropriators and giving the Department of Defense or War or whatever we call it these days, the flexibility to spend money very fast and be flexible in how they move money around.
When you look at a Shaheed, different variants, let's say $50,000 to $100,000, we can kill those right now. We can kill them. But many of the effectors that we'll use to kill them are more expensive than that drone. Now, what you saw today and what we demonstrated earlier in the week are effectors that cost much less, sometimes a tenth of the cost of that drone.
That this is an opportunity for us to look at doing everything faster. How do we iterate faster? How do we provide evaluations faster? How do we see the emerging technology at a faster rate?
But everything that the department is trying to do now, innovate in the field, bring startups and engineers and coders, 3D printers together with operators close to the area of conflict, streamline buying, and developing new technology, Ukraine has already been doing for years. But if you get out of the Pentagon, away from Washington, D.C., and listen to the people at the top of the U.S. military, and listen to the guys who are actually training to use this stuff, you'll notice a theme.
On one issue that I think is really key that comes out of the Ukraine war, which is not about a specific capability, it's about time. One of the things that I repeatedly heard from them was the importance of them compressing this time cycle between warfighters, what's happening on the front lines, and the drone developers.
The U.S. has donated plenty of military equipment, including drones, to Ukraine. But when Ukrainians talk to journalists like me and other experts, they'll tell you that most of the drones that come from U.S. defense firms can't actually survive the electronic warfare environment that characterizes modern conflict.
We spoke with the head of their drones for their armed forces, and they were pretty critical of U.S. drones. They were like,
I love that. Yeah, they think it's junk. They think our stuff is junk. They're like, we will take them because we will shoot them at the adversary, but this is not exactly the best drone I've ever seen.
Right? They didn't like it. And so I asked them, well, what's wrong with the U.S. drones? And the feedback was fundamentally that the U.S., for a variety of reasons, is not able to innovate on time cycles that are relevant enough.
So the US is behind where it needs to be on mass deployment of cheap drones. But the other lesson emerging from the Ukraine war, where the front lines have remained pretty static since 2022, is that cheap drones alone don't secure victory. They just keep you in the game. War is becoming faster in terms of innovation on the ground, but moving slower overall. When everyone is more equal, wars take longer.
It mostly favors the defense. Drone warfare can be a vanguard for assault, but all other things being equal, if both sides have it, then our traditional ratios of 3-to-1 to assault look like 20-to-1, 100-to-1.
Well, the US military is learning a lot from Ukraine. They don't want to emulate Ukraine's position of stuck in a 3+ year infantry robot war. The US has key assets that are missing from the Ukrainian battlefield, primarily information technology. The US has deployable compute capability, some of it massive enterprise cloud, some of it more deployable, survivable mesh networks. And it's got access to real-time intelligence data to run on that compute, satellite imagery, open source metadata, data from sensors, from partners, potentially from soldiers.
Also, what we did is we took existing, not just new capabilities, but we took existing capabilities with new capabilities.
Yeah.
And through software, we're integrating them into cloud architectures where we can share that data. As we demonstrated here, we got information from secret, classified, and unclassified sensors down to a soldier on a tablet to say, this is the one piece of information you need. We gave that soldier that piece of information to know that a UAS was coming at them, while all the other information was going to other organizations. But that soldier got that piece of information on a tablet.
We're turning every single dismounted soldier into a passive sensor, and it's detecting ground threats versus aerial threats and sending that information back to different counter UAS vectors.
You want to leverage electronic warfare capability. You want to leverage high power microwave capability. You want to leverage directed energy and high energy laser capability. You want to leverage 50 caliber 7.62 type capability, 5.56 capability, like you saw it here on the range today.
It changes colors when you're discharging as well. And you can see, as I move that, it's showing where the potential target is.
Yeah, so what we designed a system here is when you look at solving kind of one of the main problem points is how do you get the cost-effective nature, right? A comparable cost-effective approach. And at the end of the day, what you want to say that, well, there's a lot of great solutions out there from a variety of ways, whether it's, the drone blaster guns, that RF aspect. But when you look at, particularly as the autonomy of these things gets better, how do you go and have the highest probability of kill that you can? And that's just going to be getting a bullet on the target. And so that's what we designed, is to make the ultimate end effector the bullet itself versus a complex piece of hardware or weaponry that will jack up the price point.
You were saying yesterday, put 8 holes in one of them. And
Yep. So we put 8 holes through it. This thing's built like a tank. We have engaged group ones at 750 meters away. The 50 cal is not ideal weapon system because it needs a bigger cone of fire. So a 240 or a minigun would be ideal for group ones.
So US strength in IT, sensor-based intelligence data, and AI is driving a new concept of warfare that relies a lot on autonomy.
But the technology is either, some cases it's achievable now, in some cases 6 months, a year from now, it would be achievable where you could have sensors and effectors, missiles, whatever it may be. Then when you bring autonomy into that.
We tend to think of autonomy in terms of a robot or drone making its own decisions on what to blow up.
Но очень мало, и то мы это закрепляем тем, что у нас устанавливаются дополнительно, например, зажигалки. Даже если ты упал рядом с ней, то там, как обычно, все сгорает.
Ланцет – уникальное российское оружие с уникальными характеристиками, многие из которых до сих пор засекречены.
But what the military is moving toward is actually much more complex. An intelligent, sensing, and communicating web that makes everything on the battlefield, including humans, smart enough to perform key tasks with minimal but still hopefully present human oversight, and do so better than any human could alone.
When you look out at an urban warfare environment, which you have to think about as well, then you're dealing with something completely different. Autonomy is still going to be a factor in how the adversary uses weaponry, but we have sort of different levels of consideration because here we are, beautiful Germany, we've got French partners, we've got NATO partners, and they have publics that have very deep concerns about that. So help me understand how you work through that problem of an adversary that has lower levels of value placed on innocent human life, and you have the responsibility to pay more attention.
And what we're working through is we could set up doctrinal or procedural means where we have certain areas within a country, within a battlefield, that have been designated that those systems operate, that then we could focus our soldiers, our other equipment elsewhere.
And the next one, ground robots, right? And you're working out on a concept of operation where there's ground robots and air robots.
You have those unmanned platforms be the first contact.
Yeah.
They're the first contact, and they're effective, whatever their mission is.
Yeah.
But then we have the soldiers, be able to be that second contact point.
Yeah.
The U.S. also has large-scale and deployable AI to better predict and plan for how the battlefield will change and get that information to soldiers, commanders, to drones and ground robots, etc.
One of the things we didn't discuss a lot today, but we are capturing human factors, engineering data. So how many tasks can a soldier operate? And many of the capabilities we saw today, a soldier may have a primary job, and then we demonstrated technology here that they can't do both at the same time.
Yeah.
But a key thing that we're working through is how do we develop what we would say decision aids, but then how do we use the software, this data, to develop decision aids that maybe in 6 months from now, maybe a year from now, that through artificial intelligence, machine learning, the soldier's only doing 20% of those tasks, so they can execute both of their jobs because we've automated most of the capabilities, but there's still that decision factor.
But there's no real way to know, at least not right now, if the drones and robots and interconnected gear will actually work better than what China or Russia might bring to the battlefield, or if we can make enough drones fast enough. Thanks for joining me. I'm Patrick Tucker, Science and Technology Editor for Defense One. In 2026, we hope to reach you more often with this special coverage on these issues and others related to autonomy, AI, Europe, Ukraine, the fight for democracy, and the future of war.
Who the hell can stop me?